is Jenna Jensen. I'm one of the program chairs for OC Forum. Thank you so much for being here today. It's so good to see everybody. Those of you who don't know, the OC Forum is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We've been around for 34 years, and we've hosted elected officials from John McCain to Dianne Feinstein and numerous other state and national leaders. We are Orange County's most well-known organization for providing thoughtful and insightful speakers representing diverse points of view on a wide array of local and national issues. I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being here today and for your continued support of OC Forum. Your engagement and dedication are what make these impactful conversations so meaningful and successful. You'll see a few items on your table to help you engage with the forum. You have a QR code available for you to scan and take a quick survey. Your participation in the survey will help us continue to bring you exciting and engaging events. We really value your feedback. Upon completion of the survey, you'll be entered into an opportunity drawing for a $100 gift card. Additionally, there are comment cards on your tables. Staff will be collecting these cards so we can present your questions directly to the speakers. So if a question comes to mind while people are talking, please use those cards to jot down your questions so you don't forget. All right, so we have an exciting program lined up for you today. Supervisors Janet Nguyen and Vicente Sarmiento will be sharing their insights with us, their experiences, observations, and strategies on how to restore integrity in leadership for the County of Orange. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to recognize my colleagues on the OC Forum Board of Directors who helped make today's program possible. These dedicated individuals generously give their time, expertise, and passion to support our mission. Would all of our board members please stand so we can acknowledge you? Everybody up. All right, in addition to our featured speakers, we're honored to have some elected officials here today and their representatives. Thank you for making time in your busy schedules to be here. Please stand so we can recognize you as well. Anybody here stand up? Thank you. All right, finally, a special thank you to all of our ongoing OC Forum sponsors. Your generosity and commitment are what make programs like today's possible. And a special thank you to UCI and UCI Health, our title sponsors for the 5th consecutive year. Before we begin our program, UCI would like to share a few words with you. Please join me in welcoming to the stage UCI's Assistant Vice Chancellor of Community and Government Relations and my good friend, where's Alberto? Alberto Sandoval.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. It is Cesar Chavez Day, actually, right? So UC Irvine and UCI Health is honored to serve as the presenting sponsor for today's luncheon. We're looking forward to hearing from our supervisors, one of whom is a UC Irvine graduate, Zot Zot Zot. As you may have seen, UCI Health is in the final stages of construction of a new UCI Health Irvine complex. UCI Health is leading a transformative journey in redefining healthcare for Orange County and beyond. Let me take a quick moment to highlight 2 remarkable developments that reflect our commitment to this region: the soon-to-open Irvine Hospital and the 1-year anniversary of the historic acquisition that's already making waves. First, UCI Health Irvine, a $1.3 billion marvel set to welcome patients to the hospital later this year. Stay tuned for a grand opening of the hospital sometime later this year. This isn't just any hospital, it's the nation's first all-electric, zero-emission medical campus, blending sustainability with cutting-edge care. Imagine a 144-bed acute care facility with a 24-hour emergency department, the Chow Family Comprehensive Cancer Center, advanced outpatient services, and a focus on children's health in partnership with CHOC. It's a game changer, expanding UCI Health's academic expertise to coastal and southern Orange County and beyond. And personally, I can vouch for the excellence of our new surgical center there. Just a few months ago, I hobbled in for knee surgery after years of dodging pickleball injuries. Yes, I'm that guy who overestimated his backhand. The team had me back on my feet in no time and pain-free, promising I'd stick to just walking the dog instead. A small story, but it's proof of the care this facility delivers. Precision, compassion, and results. Now let's rewind to a milestone from a year ago yesterday. That's when UCI Health acquired 4 beloved community hospitals: Fountain Valley Regional, Lakewood Regional, Los Alamitos Medical Center, and Placentia Linda Hospital. With 858 inpatient beds and thousands of talented team members, this move united academic health care and community care like never before. In just 12 months, we've expanded access to clinical trials, introduced specialized services like advanced neurosurgery, and brought innovative treatments to countless patients. It's about ensuring every resident from every neighborhood has a shot at the best care possible. Together, these efforts embody UCI Health's mission to discover, to teach, and to heal. UCI Health Irvine pushes the boundaries of what's possible, while our community hospitals strengthen the foundation of what's already here. And none of this happens without you. Your leadership and partnership fuel this progress. As we share this meal, let's celebrate these milestones and recommit to a healthy future. UCI Health is writing the next chapter of excellence, and we're doing it with you, for Orange County, for California, and for generations ahead. Thank you. So now to our program, and it's really an honor to introduce my friend, Steve Churm. Steve Churm leverages more than 4 decades of experience as an award-winning journalist, media entrepreneur, and corporate communications executive. As a principal and founder of Churm360, he provides guidance to a diverse clientele, including CEOs, real estate executives, and nonprofit organizations throughout the County of Orange. He served on the Orange County Business Council Board of Directors for 12 years, and he's the immediate past chair of Orange County United Way, where he continues as chair of the 211 OC Leadership Council. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Steve Churm.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to be here and delighted to see everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you. I need this? Okay. Does that help? No, I don't. Is this on? 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. All right, great. All right, well, let me just get sort of buckled up here and into place. But thank you so much, Alberto, for that kind introduction. And as I said, good afternoon to everyone. I am really honored to be here today to really moderate this important and frankly fluid conversation about trust and integrity in our government institutions and leaders. And today we are blessed to have 2 highly regarded members of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, Janet Nguyen from the 1st District and Vince Sarmiento from the 2nd District. But before I bring the 2 of them up there and we begin our conversation, I thought it might be helpful to everybody to provide a little bit of context, set the table, as we like to say in our house. Nationally recognized Pew Center for Research published an article last October, just 5 months ago, that concluded Americans' mistrust of institutions has reached new lows. From the federal government to the news media to higher education, some historically respected institutions have lost people's confidence in this country. As we head toward our 250th anniversary next year as a nation, just imagine a big celebration, 250 years. We know that public trust in government has fallen sharply since the 1950s, when 70% of Americans had a high degree of trust in our elected officials and the institutions they govern. However, by the late 1970s, that trust had plunged and was barely above 30%. And just last fall, in the most recent accounting and audit of public confidence in our institutions, only 1 in 5 Americans trusted government to do, quote, the right thing just about always or most of the time. Although, to my knowledge, no individual or entity has surveyed Orange County adults on this topic, I would submit that most in our community harbor some of the same doubts, concerns, and perhaps at moments even disdain for government on the local level. Add to this deepening trend the reality that Orange County has had 2 high-profile political corruption scandals in the last 3 years, and it would be a safe assumption that government and many of its leaders are viewed with some skepticism these days. But these 2 corruption cases are not the first involving elected officials or government leaders in Orange County's history, but they come at a time of jarring political change and uncertainty nationally. Trust, integrity, and reliability in our government institutions has become almost a daily topic over the morning coffee or around the evening dinner table. With that context, our assignment today with these 2 widely respected and known county leaders is to explore the complicated but critical topic of restoring integrity in the County of Orange. We are honored to have Supervisors Nguyen and Sarmiento, 2 seasoned elected officials and public servants. Supervisor Nguyen, her political career began as a councilwoman in Garden Grove. She then served as the youngest elected county supervisor from the 1st District before going on to represent Orange County as a state senator and an assemblywoman. Last November, she returned to Orange County and was reelected to the Board of Supervisors to replace Andrew Doe, who had resigned. Supervisor Sarmiento has been a public fixture in Central Orange County since 2007, when he was appointed to the Santa Ana City Council. He went on to serve 13 years on the council and then was elected mayor in 2020, and then won election to become supervisor of the 2nd District in 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Supervisor Nguyen and Sarmiento to the stage. And I think we have, is it just one microphone? We have one more, so there'll be one for each of you. Welcome to both of you. Oh, I don't know if that's me. I'll fix it. He's going to fix it.
It's just because we're electrifying.
Yeah, well, I'm sensing that already, all right? I'm sensing it. Well, I don't know if you had a chance to eat, but we're going to dive right in. And by the way, for those in the audience, it may have been mentioned, but there are cards on your table. So as the discussion unfolds, if you have questions you would like to ask, please fill out the card, raise it in the air, and somebody from the OC Forum staff will pick it up, and we are going to leave time, 15, 20 minutes for some questions from the audience. So
Steve, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but easy questions for me, hard questions for the experienced supervisor. Give him all the hard one. Ask me what my middle name is, what my birthday is. Don't ask me about my weight. But all, you can even ask me about my age too.
I can understand why you're successful. You clearly frame the conversation. I love that, Supervisor. So let's get started this way with a question at the high level. I'd like to start by asking both of you how we landed in this place. I just talked about where public confidence currently sits as it relates just to government and elected leaders. How did we land in this place of uncertainty and really mistrust of government, both locally and nationally?
Sure. Let me begin because I guess I'm closest to you, Steve.
Okay.
And did you catch Steve talking about and referring to us as seasoned politicians? I think that was for me, that's another word for aged or elder. So thanks for being gentle with us. Not sure if this is working well. How's this? A little better? Okay. We'll keep it here. I think a lot of it for me stems from the fact that I was new to the county when all of this was happening, and a lot of this happened during the pandemic. So what was at stake? And it seems like for many of us, what happened last year during that corruption crisis, is the way I see it, happened years prior during the pandemic when a lot of money was flowing into local government, especially counties. And so they were meant to address concerns that people had and making sure people had resources, meals, health care during a very, very difficult time during the pandemic. So I think a lot of it had to do with the decentralization of resources. Unfortunately, at the county level, the monies were distributed to individual board offices. And that meant that there was almost unilateral control with very little oversight. So I know as a mayor whose city was impacted, and we lost over 1,000 people in Santa Ana because that was really the epicenter in our county for people who were exposed at that time, had very little resources. So we saw that little was coming to our community. And what I found, unfortunately, when I arrived at the county was that there was a lack of oversight, a lack of good governance, and really just clearly misuse and abuse of incredibly important resources that people needed at that time, whether it was testing, whether it was vaccines, whether it was meals. And that's what was at stake here, were meals that were going to elders who couldn't leave their house, weren't able to. And unfortunately, we saw that what looked like a failure to disclose a familial relationship became really a much larger issue, which was an abuse and a misdirection of monies to the tune of close to $10 million. So I think there was, unfortunately, during an exigent circumstance, you want to get funds quickly out, but when you do them in a way where there's very little guardrails, there's more eyes looking at that, unfortunately that lends itself to abuse, and that's what I saw happen here at the county.
Well, in terms of nationally, the mistrust of government really started back in the 70s when Pentagon was not honest about the Vietnam War and how it unwinded down and what happened with the war itself. And so from then on, it seems like the American public has decided, like, you know what, we don't necessarily trust everything you're saying anymore, government, and who got elected. And so that just continuously stem, and then what has happened in Orange County, for those of you who in this room knows, I've been sounding the alarm on the 1st Supervisor District for over a decade. Most folks, some of you in this room, have called me crazy, have thought that I was the problem one, but I was the one who's saying, hey, there's a problem here. No one's paying attention. And when you allow a county supervisor or just any individual the absolute power. What happens when you have absolute power? It corrupts absolutely. That goes in any country, in any form of government, in any institution. When you allow one individual absolute power, this is what's going to happen. And so when you go in and you look at what has happened, our office has stemmed on now, we've got binders and binders on every contract that the former supervisors touched, every relationship that we know that he has. There's so much more out there that hasn't been disclosed to the public yet. And I say yet. Because it didn't just stem because of COVID. It was a little bitsy prior to COVID. But when the government shut down federally and the state, and counties and city start having absolute power, and to allow these individuals to can give sole contracts with experience or not, to be able to receive tens of millions of dollars. It's just not just a discretionary funding we're talking about. That in itself is another animal in itself. We're talking about what the supervisor mentioned is the COVID money for senior meals. We're talking about COVID contracts. We're talking about discretionary fundings. So it's just not just in the senior meals that has been reported out there so far. And so it's time for us as government, and I'm glad, been able to work with Supervisor Sarmiento because he has been a champion. He has been very forefront in making sure the county government is accountable before I got there. And now we've been able to team up on numerous measures and ordinance changes at the county, and we're not even close to being done. And so we will, and this is what I tell everybody in every one of my speech, if you've had money from the government, from the County of Orange, if you somehow know that you did not fulfill your obligation to the county, might as well come out clean now. If not, we will know and we will come after you. And I won't blink at all when I make those comments. And I have not, and I will not.
Supervisor Nguyen, your comments very forceful that more is yet to come. We are talking about one of those cases at the county level. But I ask you, and then I'll ask you, Supervisor Sarmiento, what specific steps need to be taken? Talked a lot about stacks of binders and turning over every sheet of paper, but specifically, what can the public expect the board to do to begin to build, to begin to rebuild that public trust and integrity?
Well, the exciting news is we have been, prior to me being on board, in the state of California, we passed the legislation, with the county also adopted, is that any discretionary funding come from the Board of Supervisors individually will now have to be voted on by the full board. It requires a majority of board to allow you to spend that money down. Second, though, with Supervisor Sarmiento championing it, prior to me being here, is the forensic science audit that's going to happen with all the COVID money, whatever it is, all contracts in the entire county of over hundreds of millions of dollars. That is being moving forward. Third, the recent one that we all voted on is what Supervisor Sarmiento mentioned is the problem we had was decentralization. We are now centralizing things. Procurement is the start. We just voted on unanimously to bring procurement back into one umbrella. The former supervisor was able to go to different departments. Maybe not a lot of money, but 100,000 here, 100,000 there, 75,000 here, numerous times to different departments, and was able to gather these funding for all these little contracts of his friends and allies. We know who they are. I know who they are. There's tons of binders in my office that shows that. But that's what was problem, was that when you have different departments who are procurement department of their own agency, it becomes a problem because then we can't catch this until months or years down the line. And so we're thankful that our CEO is coming up with ideas to also looking at what can else be done. But there needs to be, we will have more policy put in place as we start digging and finding out where the gaps are and where the problems are.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, and I think the supervisor said it well. One of the things I think that's interesting about this panel is that, the supervisor and I are on, we belong to different parties, we see the world differently, but what we don't see differently is the fact that abuse is something that we should tolerate. And so that's important because at a time when you see our highly partisan, highly polarized discussion, it's important to applaud and to recognize when there's work being done from people on, that have different perspectives and lived experiences. We're both immigrants, so we both know those valuable resources were meant for people who are struggling in our county, because we live in one of the most beautiful counties in the world. I would say in one of the most beautiful places in the world, but we have many people who struggle in both our districts. And so that connects us, and we've seen that this issue in particular is one that's really important. So I certainly appreciate her now being at the board and us working on these things. But I do think that, for what the supervisor said, what always made it curious to me is that you can have audits and oversight and compliance reviews, but when it's done in-house, it makes it really disingenuous, because it's almost like kind of reviewing yourself. And that's never as respected, I think, as the public would want, when you have a third-party outside agency looking at you and looking at it objectively and looking at it with an unbiased lens. And so that's something that we, I think, desperately needed. And we saw that happen in Anaheim. In Anaheim, they realized that they needed to go outside. It's certainly much more efficient to do it inside and have an internal audit, but you really do need that fresh pair of eyes to see what was happening. And I think, again, what I saw is that one individual can't commit the type of abuse that was committed at the county. There was either lack of oversight, there was a facilitation, people were complicit, and that's, I think, where the Department of Justice continued to keep this investigation open, because they realized one person, one office can't alone subject the county to the abuse it had. So I certainly welcome that continuing investigation, the outside audit, and for our 19,000 employees to have some confidence in the place where they work. We're the third largest employer in the county, and for many of them, they tried to blow the whistle. They tried to make their voices heard and tried to alert us to what was happening. Unfortunately, that was unmet, that was unanswered, and that's something that is critically harmful to any agency when somebody is trying to call out misconduct and bad behavior and nobody listens.
You've outlined a very robust, vigorous dive into uncovering what's still there and beginning to implement change. What kind of timeline are we talking about? Is this something that's going to transpire over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? And in the meantime, how is this impacting how the county is functioning? Are we still doing business the way we should be doing? 2 questions in that. Timeline, and how's the county functioning at the moment?
Timeline, I don't know. I wish it was done yesterday so that we have the answer. Particularly, it really affects my district, because my district is the only district that lost that millions of dollars. So we now have seniors in our district wanting those meals. They're used to something, but what they now know is that only 15% of the $13 million went to meals. Only 15% of that, 1 point something million. And so the rest went to homes and, student loans and et cetera that belong to the former supervisors. And so that's the thing, is that I wish it was yesterday. And if it was my guess, I hope by the end of this year, but I don't think so, because we've been in office for now almost 2 months, and the things that we have seen and the continuous document that keeps on landing in our office, and this is just the county side. We are looking at other public agency as well, not just the county, the ones that the supervisor sits on. And so we're slowly getting there, and so this is not the only one that we're going to stop at the county. We want to go beyond it, because we believe that when we as leaders stand up and say enough is enough and this is not going to happen again, then the trust of the public would then maybe start trusting us again. But right now, it's very difficult for the public to believe that we're going to do things if we don't follow through and finish it. And so I hope the sooner the better, but I think, with the forensic, it's going to take months, because we're talking about over, $200 million that were expensed from the county side. So it's just not, the one thing I appreciate Supervisor Sarmiento is that he's not looking, when he proposed a forensic science audit, it wasn't just for the first district, it was all the districts, the entire county's ARPA CARES Act money. So that means we're encompassing a lot of probably thousands of hours of work that will be moving forward.
So specifically, Steve, though, we do believe that the contract for the forensic outside audit will be coming to us in the next, I think, 30 days. I know we were contacted. We have over 6,000 contracts that are active in the county, and that's over $5 billion of work that is being done by partners of ours. So our procurement staff is very exhausted these days because we have them working on their own audits inside, but also procuring for others outside. But yeah, the shorter, the better.
Excellent, excellent. And again, the second part of that question was, how is, and for this room's understanding, how is county government functioning right now with all this additional work and attention on this one matter?
I'll just follow up on that. I think anytime you're in the aftermath of a crisis, I think everybody wants to continue to take advantage of this opportunity, which is a crisis, right? We're in the aftermath of a crisis. And I think to every office I know that I've worked with and seen the sort of conduct that's changed from when I first entered office. And it seems like I've been in office for 20 years, but it's been only 2 years, because it's been an exhausting 2 years. So I've aged in dog years.
You look pretty good though today.
I'm
yeah,
hanging
it's
in
Friday,
there, by
I
the way.
understand.
We hide it well. But I do see that there is an interest in being more thoughtful about what we do, and I think Supervisor Nguyen mentioned AB 2946, which was introduced to make sure that we deliberate over every item that we approve. That wasn't the case before. You could go ahead and just introduce something without any scrutiny from not only the public but from the board. So those things we are now working on, because that took place almost immediately. So I think that we're certainly operating differently. It's much more open. The other day we were talking about something that we were deliberating on, and Supervisor Nguyen said, well, it's like we're what is it? We're doing sausage, or we're making sausage in public. It's ugly. It's not pretty, but that's the way it should be done. In open daylight where everybody can see. It's that I think that the public will respect. They'll respect disagreement so long as it's done publicly and open. But I do believe that it's a much better place because we are now disclosing everything that we should be.
We all know in this room that trust is very fragile, and it takes a long time to build trust, and it can be lost seemingly overnight. We see it in our personal lives, we see it professionally. Trust is fragile. Building trust also requires multiple stakeholders. There's a stakeholder in this process, and it's the public. What role should the public be playing in either assisting what's going on in terms of identifying everything that went on, but more importantly, beginning to talk about how we put in place the kinds of controls and policies and really, frankly, the accountability that begins to rebuild the trust that is absent.
The public is extremely important to this process of ours. I rely in my district, in the people in my district to feed us the information, to feed us what's going on, and when they encounter a county employee, how does that work? How did it work in the past compared to what it is today? Because only when you encounter a county employee and have a good and friendly communication and that you enjoy it, then you believe that the county is working. But if you have a problem or there's a problem, then it's not working, and that's what we need to know. In our research on the first district, we are relying a lot on the public in my district, because they were the victims and they know what happened and how it happened. Our district is a little over 700,000 residents. but it was really targeted within Little Saigon. And Little Saigon itself is large, but not. It's a very close-knit community. So when things happen, it's spiral, and you can hear it. You know when you can hear the details, you know who is who, and you know who the players are. So we've been really working and relying on our constituents to come forward, and they have, which is why we end up with more and more questions we ask to the county to get more and more documents. And that's why we've now expanded beyond just the county in my office. We've gone to other agencies as well.
Yeah, I would say that the public, has a critical role in playing, in playing sort of a remedial role here. What I saw, at least during my time, was the press played an incredibly important role in this. They were the first ones to come out and say there's this relationship that exists between the former supervisor and a family member. And so that led to other questions and more research and more investigation. Had it not been for those inquiries, those could have easily been dismissed. And I've seen that happen at other boards and commissions that I've served on, is that some agencies will just circle the wagons, the members will go ahead and say nothing to see here. That didn't happen. I know that here there was certainly some follow-up, and obviously it led to a lot more information than just simply a familiar relationship that was in conflict with that contract. But we also have to be careful with over-legislating. I know that when we try to take a really strong stance on this, and all of us want to outdo each other and fall all over ourselves by saying, hey, we've got to do one measure or some other. I think sometimes we also complicate the process, and we prevent the public from being able to also have a responsive government. So we have to create a balance on that, and I know that one of my colleagues said, well, you can't govern or legislate good behavior. Yeah, but if you abandon that and you don't legislate at all, then you have no guardrails, right? And so we have to find some balance where you can have good responsiveness to the public, but at the same time make sure that you have good oversight for the public to have confidence in their government.
You're both in alignment on the importance of the public in this process, listening to the public, answering questions. What is the commitment of the board to communicate and report out on the various milestones of this? Is there a commitment to do that, and will that happen regularly?
We can't speak on behalf of the board. I can speak on my office. Is we've committed and have always been, in the 20 years I've been in public office, to be very transparent. You ask, you get the answer. You get the information, and we have our newsletters. We constantly go out to our community just to inform them, and that also, we do a lot in informing residents of what's available for them as well. And so, we will continue to do that. And I know that since I've been on the board, most of the stuff that we've done, like the supervisor said, yeah, we are making sausages. You're watching it in live. And remember, I just came back from the Senate after 8 years in the Senate. We don't have a Brown Act rule in the Senate. We can count votes before we put it to the full body of the Senate. And when I went to the Senate the first time, I remember a senator came up to me and he had this card, and he asked me, "Hey, Janet, I'm doing this. I want to bring forward this bill and wanted to see where you're at." And then I said, "Oh, yeah." I looked at it. It was fine. I'm like, "I'm there." And then he marked something. I say, "What did you mark?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm counting my votes." I'm like, "Oh, you can do that here?" Because I came from local government. And so the card is actually available in front of the floor session for any senators to grab as many as you want. And it has everybody's name with a box, and you can check them. But then now having to come back here, I'm refocusing and trying to bring myself back to remembering there's a Brown Act, that we have to do everything in the public domain. And also, though, is we have to know that nothing's going to be perfect when it's done. Because as you know, in any negotiation, everybody has to come out unhappy. Because if not, it's not negotiation done right. So when we're up on that dais and we are transparent and we make those comments, we're making good county ordinance to be able to allow county community to follow every step of the way. And so I've commit to you, as I always have in 20 years, to continue to be transparent, continue to get the information out as we find it, as we can.
Ditto.
Good answer, by the way. Good answer. Both of you have been, as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, in the public eye, serving the public for much of this century. You took an oath of office.
I'm not that old. Remember, you said I was the youngest supervisor. Whoa, wait a minute.
We're only 25 years into this century, so
Okay.
forgive me if I am. You both swore and took an oath of office because you care about serving, about doing the right thing. When the matter at the county began to unfold, how did you as individuals, elected officials, what did it do to your sense of government and trust in the institution and the really the profession of serving people? I mean, what went on in your minds as you considered this, trying to look inside a little bit and maybe the human side of what you do?
I was devastated because it hits the core of what I have always believed in, is serving the people. And knowing that during COVID, when I was not in office, this was the first time I wasn't in office for 2 years during COVID, I was scraping to find money to buy rice bags for the Vietnamese community. Most of us were looking for toilet papers or, bottled waters, but elders in the Vietnamese community couldn't find rice bags. I was scraping and begging people to give a few dollars here, $1,000 here to buy. We were able to buy over 6,000 pounds of rice bags to give out to seniors over 75 in that area. And I wasn't in an office, but I knew I had to do something, and I couldn't sit around. And then years later, I find out $15 million was squandered while I was begging for a few dollars to provide rice for seniors. It hurts, and it makes you angry. Like, how did we allow this to happen? And I've been at the Board of Supervisors. I served there for 8 years. So I know how the county government works. It was never allowed any supervisor that kind of ultimate power, absolute power. So when you were there during that time in my district and saw the devastation, not just my district, nationally, countywide, but yet one supervisor decided to take all that to himself. So yeah, I was upset, I was disappointed, and I was extremely angry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a demoralizing moment, right? Because we hadn't seen a public corruption scandal at the county, at least for the past 40 years. We know we had come off, we're in the shadow of what happened in Anaheim and the mayor of Anaheim abusing his office. But nonetheless, I think, I have 3 kids, and I have a community that really does need leadership and leadership with integrity. And it was hard to look at them and say, as a public servant, you should trust government and you should trust your elected officials because they just saw abuse happen before their eyes. And it happened at the worst moment possible. So I think when abuse like that happens, it erodes trust going forward, as you mentioned, Steve. But I do think that for those of us who serve, it's an incredibly difficult path that many of us choose, and I don't want, it's not to, garner pity or sympathy for anybody, but you do it at a personal expense. So your family takes the abuse, people that care for you take that abuse because they believe in what you're doing. And many of us in this room, we're blessed. I'm a lawyer. I had a perfectly fine practice of law before I came into office, and I didn't do this for anything other than to serve the community that helped my family when we arrived as immigrants. So you realize that when this happens, it sets you back and it makes you reflect and say, am I in the right profession or doing the right thing with my time? So we realize that, these things do have you reflect on just your purpose. And so that's where I think a lot of us are in this county, because Orange County, I think here, the 34 cities have always looked to the county as an example, as sort of a place to be able to, get rules from and how to follow the law. And when we abuse that, we let down, other leaders that serve on school boards and on city councils and on commissions and on boards. So it certainly is going to take us a while to move out of that phase, but I think we're making a concerted effort to do that.
Okay. Before I turn to some questions, and a reminder again, if you have a question, go ahead and fill it out, raise your hand, and we'll grab it. Before I turn to some of these questions, a final question from me. We have done a good job of suggesting that there are some serious issues inside the Hall of Administration. We're trying to get to the bottom of those, but let's look a little further out to the horizon. How can you reassure this room that at the end of this process, no matter what is discovered, there's going to be some accountability? And what would that look like for the public in terms of reporting out into the future? Expenditures, behavior. Talk a little bit about accountability and how we put that in place and what it might look like if you've considered it.
Rock, paper, scissors?
I'm incredibly optimistic about where we are, because we have been able to address a problem. I mean, I think to myself, had we not disclosed this, or had this not resulted with with where we are now, having actually found somebody who who committed this and found a wrong that we can correct, and there are steps that are being taken to correct it. So, looking out, from this point forward, I do see that we have a concerted effort to a person on that board. I think everybody is committed to making sure that there's trust being restored. And I do think now the public is watching, and it's really the responsibility of our community to hold us accountable and say, where are you now? Where are these funds now going that you're going to be expending, that you're going to be allocating? So it really is sort of a collective effort, because those of us on the board can certainly continue to try to make attempts, but it's only the accountability from the public, from the press, from other places that are going to hold us responsible to what we've committed to doing, which is curing that problem and remediating that. I don't think that simply saying trust us is going to work any longer. It is going to be a responsibility that the public has to say, I am going to hold you accountable, even if not just in the next election cycle when you're up for re-election, but hold you accountable on making sure that there's compliance, that the procurement has been fair, that there are no sole source contracts being given to people, that there's actual scrutiny being placed upon the monies that are being expended on behalf of the public. So I do see this as a moment for the public really to surface and say, we want to hold you as accountable as you needed to be before this all happened.
And I just wanted to add is that I hope that at the end, when we do put together responsible reform, and like the supervisor said, we don't want to overreach either to cap what supervisors can do for their district in the future, but we also want to make sure that our employees trust and be able to come forward with information when it happens, not years down the line. But hopefully in the end, that the community can look to us and say, you have done everything you did. You flipped all over every rocks, looked underneath every rocks, everything that you can, and this is what you can see, that we have tried everything we can. And I hope, in my heart, I hope that I'm wrong. But I don't think we're wrong. I know that we're in the right path to get to the bottom of it. And if we do come up with there's nothing here, we'll tell you there's nothing there. But if there's something there, we'll keep at it, and we'll keep on looking. And so in the end, we will continue to be transparent. We will continue to go to the people and the residents of Orange County. You tell us if we're going the right direction or not.
First question from the audience is one that I certainly have thought about. Some have suggested that adding to this narrative of uncomfortableness, mistrust, perhaps some suspicion, is the fact that we still don't have a permanent CEO of this county. We have an interim CEO, but it's been a good year now since we knew the former CEO was leaving. How's that process going, and where are we in finding somebody to come and run this county, arguably one of the best places to live and work? Give us an update on the search for a new CEO.
You know, well, I'll start because I was here last year when we started the process. And so one of the challenges was, do we move forward with that search even though we only had 4 supervisors actively sitting at the table? And I can't go into the details because a lot of it was done in closed session, but to the extent that you have 4 people deciding the fate of the county and who's going to be the county executive officer was a difficult decision. But we also wanted to make sure that somebody from the 1st District would be sitting at that table, making sure that he or she had somebody who's going to reflect the vision, because that's what I think we all are looking for is now who's going to guide us or navigate us out of this, because it certainly can't be an attractive job right now for many. There is that challenge of coming into a county that's in the aftermath of a corruption crisis. We've got, the airport fire that we're dealing with. We're dealing with some other challenges in the county. So we know there are other prospects for professionals that have the scale and the scope to be able to go ahead and lead a county as large as ours and as complex as ours. But I do think that the right decision was made to hold off because, again, we would have made a decision that the supervisor wouldn't have had a role in making a decision, and she's going to be here probably the longest of all of us. So we just thought reserving that that decision to now, and I know that the search is actually active right now, and so we are receiving interest and applications from others. It's an extremely challenging job, but I think it's probably one of the most rewarding if somebody decides to choose it.
Terrific. Question, a good one, because we have a number of young people in the audience here today who have come to listen to this discussion. The question is this: what can schools and nonprofits who work with youth do to help cultivate the values necessary to restore and maintain integrity in leadership?
Well, you're the youngest, so you should be able to answer that one.
I think
easily.
that's the end of the panel. The panel's over now, okay?
Yeah.
We've stumped the 2 of them, okay?
I'm all ears. I think we would like, if you have more ideas or fresh ideas, please come forward and let us know because we always can do better. I don't think, even after our search and our, auditing and investigation and all that, we can do better. And it's always good to have a different perspective and a different view. I tell people this all the time. I don't agree with my husband 100% of the time, so don't expect me to agree with you 100% of the time. If there's any couple that's so completely different, he's from the East Coast, I'm from the West Coast. He's Polish, Lithuanian, Italian, and Irish. I'm Vietnamese, a refugee. You name it. We're totally night and day. I like my soup broth clear. He likes it creamy. So you see how that is? So we would love to hear from you. If there's other things that we can do better, come to one of us, to our office, and we would love to learn from you. And if there's things that we can do more, let us know.
Yeah, and I would add to that, let me just point out my Chief of Staff, Yasi Goebel. If any of you are interested in serving as, give her a round of applause. Yeah. But we offer internships at our office, and I know all board offices do. It's a great way for many of you to kind of introduce yourselves to politics and to government and realize that there is so much good work that can be done. I'm so, again, optimistic and hopeful because a lot of the young people that have served as interns in our office have gone on to do incredible things. And when I was mayor, many of the interns I worked with and many of the youth advocates who lead on issues like affordable housing, healthcare, they've been some of the most articulate, bright, analytical people to come before us and be able to do this because they simply are interested. So I believe we have some extremely good talent here in this, great talent here in this county, and so I think those are the future leaders, and hopefully, you know, people like me can step aside and retire and make room for one of them, but I'm definitely hopeful.
Steve, if I can add to that.
Sure.
You know, not only are they helping out with the different departments, but in the future, they can be a county supervisor too. I started as an intern at the county.
The future is yours. You just heard it. That's great. There are several nonprofits in the audience. This is another question from the audience. As the county sorts out how to regain trust with the public is relying more and more on nonprofits to fill the void. Please talk about how you and the supervisors envision supporting and elevating nonprofits in the years ahead.
So, nonprofits do the job, God's job, that a lot of us can't do, and really some folks won't do. So we appreciate you, and we thank you. But I also caution and remind folks is that the county should not be in the business of keeping you in business. Our job is to protecting the taxpayer and protecting the residents of Orange County. So if you commit to fulfilling a contract with us, we have matrix, we have performance now, and we are going to hold you accountable for it. And we want to work with you because the more you can help us, the better it is for the county, because guess what? The people trust the nonprofits more than they trust government.
Yeah, I think what I'd add is that I'm extremely grateful for the work that the nonprofit community has done, in addition to the philanthropic community. I know that, you know, during these moments, we have to have partners, we have to have people who are doing the work. And the nonprofits, you know, that I've been blessed to know, and we've had a network in Santa Ana and in Central Orange County, they are closest to the people and closest to those that really need services. So government, we're a few steps away, and there's sort of you know, a reluctance from the public to be able to seek support from government and public agencies. But nonprofits are that bridge between us and the community. And so I've been really grateful for the work that they've done with my time as council member, mayor, and now supervisor, because I couldn't have done any of the work without their just relationships, because there is place, you know, there is trust. And just like with you know, faith-based communities, I know that they've stepped up and they've really helped bridge that connection that our office has to the community.
Several questions in here having to do with resources and the equitable allocation through the 5 districts. So I'm going to sort of pull a couple of questions together. And the question might be this: in this reset that the county is clearly headed toward in terms of how it operates, how it manages its business, and how it accounts for its business, is there consideration about looking at how resources are allocated to the different districts to make sure there's more of what is implied here, equity in terms, an equitable approach to that, if the question makes some sense?
Absolutely. I think we need to, as a county, if, let's say, a specific city has more homeless individuals, we should put more money into that city or into that district. Because if it's the homeless population budget, if there's more in, say, Santa Ana than there are in, say, Garden Grove, we should put more there. But then we also should look at holistically, right? We can't just say, well, Garden Grove shouldn't get anything at all, right? It's that we need to make sure that when we're trying to solve a problem, we go straight to where the problem is, but also to prevent it from happening everywhere else.
Yeah, I think you know, being equal and making sure everybody gets a fair share is critically important. That way you don't disenfranchise one district over another. but there are needs higher in some places than others. And let's just, for example, take a look at places where there's a concentration of seniors. To the extent that there are needs that are specific maybe to a district or to a region, certainly there should be resource allocation and there should be some thought. And it's a lot more work to do scalpel-like work like that rather than just simply saying everybody divvies up, this amount of money into 5. That's not the way we should be expending our money. We should be looking critically and analyzing where is the need, how can we go ahead and make sure that within those needs we balance those resources correctly. But it is a lot more work, and I think it's lazy just to go ahead and allocate by district. I think that it doesn't make any sense. We have a very diverse community. I know that the supervisor represents a coastal community, very different than the district I represent, which is an inner city, very urban area. And so our needs are different, whether it has to do with environmental concerns, whether it has to do with infrastructure, whether it has to do with areas prone to fire like some of the other districts that Supervisor Wagner and Foley represent. So all those concerns need to be balanced against making sure people have the right number of resources.
I mentioned at the outset that we are all experiencing a rather sharp reset on the federal level with a new president and some of the decisions that were made and pulled back and decisions made again, particularly as it relates to federal funding. Question here from the audience: has the county finished an assessment of the impacts of all the pending or proposed federal cuts to housing and health care? And if so, any sort of early read on how the county is going to address this?
The answer is no. The only reason is because things happen in DC by the split second. It changes. And every time the president has an executive order, a lawsuit happens. And then the next day or two, something else comes down and says yes or no. So changes continuously happen, and it is going to affect the county. Because, for example, you heard a couple days ago on terms of his executive orders for election. Well, if we were to do everything the president wants, we would be in violation of state law. And we would be sued by the state. But then the federal government is holding us hostage. Well, if you don't do it, then we're going to stop your funding. So really, county and local government are now squeezed in between the fights between the federal government and states. And it's getting where it will have an impact. But I know that our staff is constantly monitoring it, and we're getting emails every minute that we can when there's new information. And that's not just for the County of Orange, but also we sit on OCTA. It affects every public agency that we sit on.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And I just as an example, I certainly don't agree with a lot of what's happening and the new administration's decisions. That's fine. That could be a qualitative decision for me. But I also disagree with a lot of what the governor in Sacramento does. Just because they're from the same party I belong to, I think that there's also been some missteps and things that I clearly disagree with. Orange County is a donor county. We receive a lot less money than our 57 other sister counties. And that's something that I know, again, both the supervisor and I agree on, because there is no reason why we should not receive our fair share. So there's complete agreement on things that we disagree with the state. And I do agree that, unfortunately, it's hard to prepare for uncertainty. And right now, uncertainty is happening in real time.
There are some that believe Orange County, frankly, even though we have 3.2 million residents, is a bit of a news desert. We're in the shadow of Los Angeles. The Orange County Register isn't the paper it once was, and I'm an alumnus of that paper. But there is a real shortage of outlets. How should we strengthen the local press if you believe it played a significant role in bringing to light the problems inside the Hall of Administration?
I think that the entire scandal that affected us last year, had it not been for the press, wouldn't have come to light, and it wouldn't have concluded with us realizing the abuse that was occurring. So to the extent that there are challenges to the press and the media, and we know that news outlets like the Register have suffered just because you've transitioned from print press to digital. That's affected and taken out many news outlets, so we have very few that remain. And to the extent that we're in the shadow of the largest county in the country, makes it difficult. But we do realize that there is a lot happening here in the county that without that third lens of the media being able to look at what we're doing, that really is a reflection of the public. That is another place that we need to make sure that we support, that we give credibility to. Not all of them are credible, and unfortunately social media has changed that, because we're looking at some stats, and it's funny, I'll sit down and talk with my kids who are in college. They don't get any of their information from traditional press any longer. They get it from their devices, and they have zero trust and credibility in the news outlets. That's unfortunate, because many of them are profit driven, so you look at them critically and say, well, whose issue are you trying to champion, or how skewed is your vision? So I do think, though, there are some really credible news outlets that have done remarkable work through Public Records Act requests, and those are instruments that they can uncover documents that are not available to the public sometimes, and that are not in full view. So I certainly support that we continue to support our press.
Terrific. Question here from the audience. You've emphasized the need for oversight. However, the county has eliminated the Treasury Oversight Committee, formed immediately after the bankruptcy, the county's bankruptcy in the late 1990s, and has been in place for 30 years. Are you still comfortable with this decision, and why?
I took the last one.
Well, the Treasury oversight falls under if the treasurer is still doing the investment. But now that the investment falls back to the county, then there is no need for that oversight. We do have another oversight that's now overseeing the investment oversight, that's overseeing the county side. The county, since we've taken over that responsibility. Now, once we give back the investment power back to the treasurer tax collector, we will have that oversight back, because it's required. And so it's absolute now, right now, because she doesn't have the investment power. It's back at the board. So that's why we don't have it. So I have no problem giving it back to the treasurer. I was here when we did take it from another treasurer tax collector in the past. I voted for that also in the past. And so this is not my first rodeo of this issue. And so here's the challenge for the board, is that if we see an issue, we have to tackle it. We have to figure out and work it. Because in the end, if something happens bigger and we sat idle, who gets blamed? It's the Board of Supervisors, not the treasurer tax collector.
Yeah, I think that a $17 billion investment is an incredibly large amount of money, and I think, to the supervisor's point, it's delegated authority on that investment that we provide to the treasurer tax collector. My hope is that we can get back to that traditional model where the treasurer tax collector does has that ability to go ahead and invest wisely, and I think. The good news here is that those investments are sound, they're solid, the yields are strong. I think for those of us who, again, have that initial authority that's delegated to the treasurer tax collector, I believe that there are moments, there are reasons that we had to pull back this time. I think it's balancing interests. It's making sure that, again, if we see something and we don't act and something happens, then the public will say, well, why didn't he act? right? And so I think it's just trying to be preemptive, taking a pause, realizing that we also wanted to have some options on who we can delegate that authority to was important for us to be able to exercise. So we certainly hope that as an independently, duly elected official, we can certainly, redelegate that authority back to that office. We just wanted to make sure that we made some corrective measures as far as oversight went.
Final question, and leaving on this note, what is the one or two things each of you hopes that this audience leaves this room with today after this conversation?
Well, I'll start. I just want to, say, I want you to leave with hope. I want you to leave with optimism because I know that we've been through so much and we're going through so much. You do have I think, at the very least two, and I have confidence in my three other colleagues, that we all want to do the right thing with our county governance. And I think that you've seen certain things play out in real time right in front of you, where things could have gone completely different. And I think what you're seeing is that there's remedial efforts being made. There's efforts to try to look at us and say, how can we change the culture of what got us here? Back to your first question, Steve. How did we get here? Well, to be reflective and to say there were certain things that were wrong. There wasn't oversight. There was unilateral authority in one office. There was no, there was a concentration and a decentralization of monies. All those things, I think, if we come back and we look at, we'll have a much better county when it comes to governance, when it comes to integrity and public trust. And so I want you to leave here feeling better about the aftermath of a crisis that's going to lead to hopefully some much, much better corrective measures and policies.
Thank you.
And I agree with the supervisor. I do hope that you don't. What we've stated here today is harsh and it's difficult for us. It's not something we want to be in this role at this moment. I wish I was here when we were lots of millions of dollars. When I came to the Board of Supervisors, we were going through a recession the first time. So we were buckling our belts. We were skimming down, laying off employees, and et cetera. And then I come back, in between there, it was the best of the times for the county. We had so much money. And then I come back, and then this is what we are dealing with now. But I agree with the supervisors that I hope you do leave here with hope, is that we will hold people accountable. That we will unearth whatever we can. And if there's nothing there, then there's nothing there. But if there's something there, we will be responsible in making sound policy decisions and making sure that the county is protected, the employees protected, and that the supervisors continue, even after us, to be able to govern and protect their district. For me, as what happened with the first district has really haunted my district. Not just the first district in general, but also the Vietnamese American community. I worked so hard for 20 years to making sure that people see Little Saigon as a pride and a joyful and a very hardworking community that would do whatever it takes for their children. I didn't want to see the one, after over 40 years, a county supervisor, a Vietnamese American. That in itself has been hurting our district. It has been giving a really bad taste when people look at Vietnamese Americans, when they look at Vietnamese American elected officials. We are right now having to unwind and show them that we're not all the same. And the community itself has worked so hard. This year is 50 years since the war ended. And so I want to make sure that we walk out as First District and that we are proud of who we are and we're going to continue to fight. And that hope is there and that we will clean and make sure that we have sound policy at the county and that hopefully you can look to us and trust us again.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's please thank the two supervisors for their time today. I truly believe this is an important step, meeting with the public, talking to the public, having this kind of discourse and dialogue. So I congratulate both of you for coming and being a part of this. So thank you very much for doing that. We'd also like to thank today the OC Forum sponsors, and that begins with UCI. Thank you to them for their continued support of this kind of an important public affairs programming. Also like to thank the OC Forum staff for the great job they do in organizing this. This does not happen on its own, and they've done a great job pulling this together. Also like to thank the Pacific Club staff, another great meal, hospitality, excellent. The next, yes. Please mark your calendars. April 17th is the next edition of the OC Forum, and the special guest will be Cal State Fullerton President Ron Rochon. If you have not met him, if you have not heard him, one of the most interesting people to land in our community in some time. He is running a small company of 43,000 students and untold staff and so forth. And he has some interesting perspective coming from the Midwest and suddenly running an institution here in Orange County, coastal California. So you don't want to miss it. He is very refreshing and very insightful. And finally, perhaps the most important, your parking, okay? It is all complimentary, as you probably know, but make sure if you want to get out that you go through this gate here and not that gate, if that makes sense for you. This is the one that will open up as you leave. If you try the other one, it may be dinner before somebody rescues you, okay? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for attending this edition of OC Forum.